Hello, are you guys there? Are you ready? Are you ready for the story for tonight? Tonight we are going to read. Remember, I couldn't decide yesterday? So, all of you and Malia, you guys helped me pick out this book. We've decided on this book. It is A Spoon for Every Bite. Can you guys see okay? This is one of my favorite books. It's kind of funny. So I'm going to read it. You guys ready? I'm going to just wait just a few more minutes. I see you guys coming. Hi. Hi, Malia. Hi, Aiden. Okay. Let's get started, okay, you guys? A Spoon for Every Bite. This book was written by Joe Hayes and illustrated by Rebecca Lear. Isn't that a funny title, A Spoon for Every Bite? Could you imagine using a spoon for every single bite of food you ate? Whew. Sounds like a lot of dishes to me, but let's see what it's all about. A long time ago, there was a poor couple who lived in a small, tumble-down house. They were so poor that they owned only 2 spoons, one for the husband and one for the wife. Their neighbor, on the other hand, was very, very rich. His house was big and elegant and filled with fine furniture. He was very proud of his wealth and his possessions, and he lived in an extravagant way. One year, the poor couple had a baby. And when it was time to baptize the child, the wife said to her husband, "Why don't we ask our neighbor to be godfather to our baby?"
"But he is rich and we are poor," the man protested. "Why would he want to be our compadre?"
"You never know," said the wife. "He might accept. Maybe, somehow, it will change our luck." So the poor man asked their rich neighbor to be their child's godfather, and the rich man accepted. They took the baby to the church to be baptized, and the neighbors became compadres. The poor couple watched their baby grow rounder and more rosy-cheeked with each passing week, and their hearts swelled with feelings of abundance. One day, the poor woman said to her husband, "Now that our neighbor is our compadre, I think we should invite him to eat supper with us this evening."
But the man asked, "How can we do that? We only have 2 spoons."
So they didn't invite the rich man for supper that day. Instead, they began to save their pennies until at last they could afford to buy a 3rd spoon. Then the poor man went to the rich man's house and invited his compadre to come for dinner. The poor woman made a very tasty soup. And when the 2 men arrived, she sat the rich man at the place with the shiny new spoon. "This is your place, compadre," she said. "You get to use our 3rd spoon. We just bought it today." The rich man could scarcely believe what he'd heard.
Do you mean to say you only own 3 spoons? He asked. Oh, yes, the poor man told his compadre. Until this morning, we only had 2 spoons, but we bought a new one today so that you could join us for dinner.
Do you see him laughing? The rich man couldn't contain himself. He laughed aloud.
You had only 2 spoons? And you bought a new one for me to eat with? Why? He boasted. I have so many spoons in my house, I could use a different one for each day of the year if I wished to. The poor man was embarrassed and annoyed by his compadre's boastfulness. But the poor woman spoke right up in reply.
Oh, that's nothing, compadre, she said. We have a friend in these parts who uses a different spoon for every bite he eats. He never uses the same spoon twice.
The rich man waved his hand in disbelief, but the poor man gave his wife a knowing wink and swore that it was true. My wife is telling the truth, compadre, he said. Our friend uses a different spoon for every single bite he eats. The rich man was so upset by the idea that someone lived even more lavishly than he did that he could hardly eat his soup. That night, he lay awake thinking about it. The next day, the rich man's servant came running to the poor man's house. What did you give my master to eat last night? He demanded. The poor man shrugged. He ate the same thing we all ate, the tastiest soup my wife has ever made. Why do you ask? Your soup must have driven him crazy. This morning at breakfast, he insisted on using a different spoon for every bite he ate. And after he took one bite from a spoon, he ordered me to get rid of it. The poor compadre laughed to himself. This was just the kind of thing he and his wife had hoped would happen. And what did your master tell you to do with the spoons you're ordered to get rid of? I asked what should be done with them, the servant replied, and master laughed and said, give them to my compadres, they only have 3 spoons. At his noonday meal, the rich man did the same thing, and he did the same thing at dinner as well. That evening, the rich man's servant carried a pile of spoons to the poor couple's house and left them beside the door. The next day was no different. The rich man insisted on a new spoon for every bite. The same thing happened the following day and the day after that. In less than a week, the servant informed the rich man that there were no more spoons left in the house. Get me some more, growled the rich man. Do you think I'm too poor to buy more spoons? His servant hurried to the store. When the rich man had used up all the spoons in town, the servant had to travel to stores in other towns. Can you guys see all the spoons he's using? Look at all of those spoons. Soon the rich man began selling all his livestock and land just to buy more spoons. A mountain of spoons stood beside the poor couple's house. At the end of a year, the rich man had squandered all of his wealth, and there were just 3 spoons in his house. He walked angrily to the poor couple's house and pounded on the door. "You lied to me!" he roared when they opened it. "No one can use a new spoon for every bite he eats. I've proved it. I am the richest man for miles around, and not even I can use a spoon for only 1 bite." "No, compadre," the poor man said calmly. "You're mistaken. Our friend does just what we said." "That's right," added the poor woman. "Day in and day out, year and year out, he uses a different spoon for every bite he takes." "Take me to meet this friend of yours," the rich man demanded. "He must be the wealthiest man in the world." The poor couple took their compadre to the nearby Indian pueblo. They went to the house of the poor couple's friend. The Indian and his wife welcomed the compadres and invited them to stay and have a meal. "That's just what I came for," said the rich man. "I want you to show me how you use a new spoon for every bite you eat." He sounds angry, right, guys? Let's see what happens. "Spoon?" asked the Indian. "This is the only spoon I use." He pointed to a stack of tortillas on the table. "That's the spoon my people have used since the beginning of time." He broke off a piece of tortilla and scooped up some beans. The beans and the spoon disappeared into his mouth. "He'll never use that spoon again," laughed the poor man. Again, the rich man was too upset to eat his meal. He got up from the table and walked sadly home. But the poor couple enjoyed every bite the Indian shared with them, spoon and all. And they walked home smiling. They knew that when they had sold all the spoons their rich compadre had thrown away, they would live out their days in comfort. The end. What did you guys think of the story? Wasn't that so funny? You see, the rich man thought he was so rich and wanted to be the richest in the land and ended up being the poorest. That was such a good book. This is one of my favorites. A spoon for every bite. So now when you guys eat tortilla chips and dip, and you can tell people that you eat a different spoon with every bite. Good night, you guys. Good night, Malia. Good night, Israel. Good night, Aiden. Good night, Makai. Good night, you guys. Good night, Shay. Good night, Ariana. Good night, Miss Alicia. Good night, Daniela. Oh, good night, you guys. Good night, Sky. Good night, Miss Monique. Good night. Good night, Bryson. You guys have a good night, okay?